Willow never imagined that one day I would leave her. She thought that my love for her was more important than my own life. Even allowing her to fool around with her first love, what she didn't know was that I married her as her simp, dedicated solely to her, but in reality, between us, there was only business. No feelings. Chapter 1. It was 8 o'clock in the evening, and I was reheating the cold food on the table. This was the third time tonight I had walked into the kitchen. The chicken soup I made for Willow was now cold. The food gets cold and is reheated, just like my heart, which is fried again and again every night waiting for Lucia to come home. I sighed, but my hands kept moving. After reheating the food, I quickly started tidying up the house, wiping down the table until it was spotless. Then, I took out Willow's clothes for tomorrow and ironed them in advance. As I ironed, I didn't forget to spray on her favorite rose perfume. I remembered that fragrance clearly. By the time I prepared her bath and brewed the calming tea for her on the table, it was already 10 o'clock. The door finally opened, and Willow walked in, her face tired. I skillfully took her bag from her, then knelt down to change her shoes. Just as I was about to ask her if she was tired, she interrupted me directly. "I'm going to take a shower first." Willow didn't even look at me. She was completely absorbed in her phone screen, occasionally smiling to herself. But when she finally looked up and saw me, that smile quickly vanished. She took off her jacket and stepped it onto the floor, impatiently giving orders. "Go wash my clothes, and change my perfume, always using roses." How tacky. Willow rolled her eyes and walked into the bathroom. Soon, I could hear the sound of water from the bathroom, mixed with the occasional clear, bright laugh from Willow. I had already gotten used to it. Silently, I put the clothes in the washing machine and went to reheat the food for the fourth time. When Willow finally came out, she purposely walked barefoot on the floor I had wiped several times, her half-dry hair dripping water all over. The once tidy house now looked a bit messy. Willow fiddled with her phone, pressed the voice button, and replied coyly, "Makoto, you should sleep early too. Good night." She then glanced at the dining table, sniffed dismissively, and sneered. She said, "Same few dishes every time. So boring. I'm not eating." Willow turned and went upstairs, slamming the bedroom door shut. The loud bang felt like it struck me in the chest, and I flinched. I looked around the house, every corner showing signs of my careful arrangement. But what good was it? After all, I had done so much for this home, sacrificed so much for her. Yet, in Willow's eyes, it probably couldn't compare to a simple "good night" from Makoto. Chapter 2. I didn't start clearing the table like I usually did. Instead, I turned off all the lights in the living room. I took out my phone and saw several missed calls, so I called my mother-in-law back. As soon as the call connected, I heard her worried voice asking, "George, are you really going to divorce Willow?" I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I lay down on the couch, my gaze lingering on our wedding photo. In the photo, I was smiling humbly, trying to cheer Willow up, while she stared at me coldly, keeping her distance. I sneered quietly, suddenly feeling exhausted. I said, "Mom, the only reason I was with Willow in the first place was because of the business relationship between our families. Now that the business is stable, and the contract has expired, there's no reason for me to stay by her side and be an eyesore." Right. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and I could hear my mother-in-law let out a soft sigh. She said, "George, I know you've been suffering these years, and I've seen it. You and Willow were childhood sweethearts. In terms of family background, character, and commitment, you've always been the best son-in-law in my eyes. But who would have thought that girl would fall for some little celebrity and never look at you? Your parents are waiting for you abroad. Are you planning to go back? Maybe I should talk to Willow again. She really doesn't appreciate what she has." Listening to my mother-in-law's endless chatter, I stared at the dark ceiling, and everything that had once been familiar now felt so strange. It was all because Willow said she liked F-City. 5 years ago, I left behind my family and career, bought a big flat here in F-City to be our wedding home. I came to this city with no relatives or friends, overcoming all the unfamiliarity, thinking that by building a home with Willow, I would gradually create happy memories. But everything felt like a dream that vanished in an instant. 5 years of reality slapped me awake, telling me that not everything can be achieved by just trying hard. I laughed at myself, politely interrupting my mother-in-law. "Mom, it's fine. I should go back." After hanging up, I fell into a haze and soon drifted off to sleep. As memories surged, I dreamed of that day 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I went back to China with my parents. The family business was expanding domestically, and we needed to work with the influential Liu family. At a dinner, I learned that the two families were about to sign an important contract. It was at that dinner that I met Willow, the childhood friend I had always been thinking about. Back then, Willow was very thin, looking disheveled with unkempt hair. She was leaning against the balcony, staring blankly into space, looking very down and sad. From Lou's mother, I learned that Willow was in love with a member of a boy band named Makoto. She had supported his debut financially, made an album for him, and even sent him to Korea for training. They were in a passionate relationship for 2 years, and Willow had hardly ever come home, following him around the world. But a month ago, Makoto publicly announced his relationship with an actress and blocked Willow. Willow, nearly losing her mind, tried to contact him. She even went to the airport to intercept him, wanting to get some closure, but was beaten by his fans, who mistook her for an obsessive stalker, and was sent to the hospital. After that, Willow began to spiral into despair. She spent her days partying, drinking, and dancing, torturing her body. As I listened, my eyes couldn't help but follow Willow. But clearly, she no longer remembered me. Suddenly, Lou's mother's eyes lit up, and she suggested adding a clause to the contract. She said, "Since we're going to work closely together, we need to become one family, so we can fully trust each other." So, partly for the family business and partly out of personal interest, I gave up the idea of inheriting my family's business and signed a business marriage contract with the Lou family. A 5-year deal. I hid my identity and began pursuing Willow passionately as a lowly employee, doing everything for her like a simp. From that day on, everyone knew that Willow had a shadow following her everywhere. I loved her humbly, willing to do anything for her, and didn't mind that she had someone else in her heart. I quietly watched over her. Willow never rejected my kindness but always refused to give me an answer. Then, on the day I proposed for the 99th time, Willow, holding a glass of wine, looked at me drunkenly. She laughed lightly, smashing the wine glass on the floor, and in front of everyone, beckoned me over, saying, "Of course, if you're proposing, you have to kneel to show sincerity. Don't you think so?" Suddenly, many onlookers started to tease, and Willow's best friend boldly mocked me. "Compared to Makoto, you're just a well-behaved dog. Without sincerity, why would Willow marry you?" I knew she was just trying to embarrass me, playing with me, but without hesitation, I kneeled on the broken glass, and blood poured out instantly. That was the first time Willow panicked in front of me. She almost jumped up and hugged me tightly. On the yacht, fireworks exploded across the night sky, lighting up Willow's clear eyes. I clearly saw that there was reluctance and pain in her gaze, and I was momentarily blinded by that moment of tenderness from Willow. I said, "Willow, marry me, and I will protect you for the rest of my life." Willow leaned her head on my shoulder and nodded vigorously. I knew our marriage was built on false pretenses, but I always believed that in that moment, Willow's pain was real. I had thought that Willow didn't love me that much, but there would always be a place for me in her heart, as long as I kept doing my best for her. One day, I could win her over, but later, I learned that the only reason Willow agreed to marry me was that Makoto had posted a public display of affection that day, showing off their engagement photos. Later, we got married, but Willow still loved to play. She would go out until late every night, never giving me an address. Then, after Makoto announced his divorce, Willow disappeared for 2 whole months. She chased Makoto around the world, attending all his tours, secretly sending him money behind my back. Chapter 3. Makoto returned to the country to celebrate his birthday, and Willow even rented an entire building to throw him a party. While racing motorcycles with some small-time celebrities, something went wrong. When I went to the police station to bail Willow out, she was so drunk she could barely stay conscious. I stayed by her side the whole night, but she kept calling out other men's names in her sleep. That was when I knew it was time for the contract to end. It was time for me to let go. By noon the next day, Willow slowly woke up. Seeing the simple white porridge and eggs on the table, she frowned and said, "I want a sandwich. Go make it for me." I didn't move. Instead, I quietly drank from my bowl. I replied, "We're out of ingredients. Maybe next time." I knew there wouldn't be a next time. My plane ticket was already booked, and in a month, I would leave for good. But I didn't feel like arguing anymore. Fortunately, Willow didn't seem to care. She just grumbled and sat down. She was still glued to her phone, occasionally chuckling, without even trying to hide her enjoyment of whoever she was chatting with. I set my spoon down, quietly waiting for her to finish. Then, I handed her the divorce papers I had already prepared. I said, "Willow, let's get a divorce." My tone was calm, devoid of any fluctuation, as if I was talking about an everyday matter. Willow, still smiling with the phone in her hand, barely glanced up and half-heartedly replied, "Okay." I couldn't help but smile bitterly. I'd known all along that Willow had no feelings for me. Now that Makoto was back, the slight attention I'd gotten from her before had already faded. Now, I couldn't even get her to listen. I flipped the contract to the last page and pointed to the blank spot in the lower right corner. "Just sign here," she responded. "MHM. Willow raised her brows in annoyance, perhaps frustrated that I interrupted her happy moment. She quickly signed her name without even looking up, too absorbed in her conversation. I watched silently as she finished, and I took the contract without a word. I said, "In a month, We'll get the divorce certificate. I'll be leaving the country. Let's part on good terms. She waved me off. I know. It's so annoying. Willow didn't spare me another glance. She immediately dialed a number on her phone, her expression turning sweet as she flirted with the person on the other end. I couldn't hold back and called out to her. Willow, do you even know what you just signed? Willow paused, looking back at me with confusion in her eyes. She replied, wasn't it a business contract? I already told you to handle the business stuff on your own. Don't bother me with it. She sighed, clearly irritated, as if issuing a final warning. Do you need something? If so, just say it once and for all. Don't waste my time. Willow was, as always, indifferent. She enjoyed all my sacrifices without a second thought, never caring about my feelings or actions. So I laughed and said, no, there's nothing else. There won't be anything else. In my mind, I thought, you can be happy with Makoto from now on. I won't disturb you anymore. After sending the divorce papers to the lawyer, I went to Wong Corporation to wrap up my work with the vice president. He had been waiting in the office for a long time and immediately grabbed my hand. Mr. Wong, you're finally here. There's still some business that needs your guidance. I'm glad you're finally letting go of your wife and focusing on work. I lowered my head to organize the documents, sneering. It's ex-wife, I corrected. We're divorced now. The vice president was momentarily stunned, then sighed knowingly. You've done so much for the Liu family over the years, not to mention the business. But tell me, which successful CEO would cook and clean for his wife? You did all that for her, and yet she never even gave you a second glance. It's better this way. Really? I chuckled. Yes, everyone saw how much I gave, but the person I lived with, the one closest to me, never noticed. It really wasn't worth it. That evening, when I returned home, I began packing my things. I never paid much attention before, but as I packed, I realized how little in this home truly belonged to me. The apartment I bought was filled with Willow's belongings. There were stuffed animals I had bought for her, designer bags I had picked out for her, pink flowers I handcrafted for her, and a rabbit lamp, among other things. Anything Willow liked, I would buy for her, but Willow would only say thanks and toss everything aside. Soon, the entire place was full of her things, with no space left for mine. That's when I realized how small and insignificant I was in this relationship. I immediately called a moving company and had everything I owned moved out. I threw away all the things Willow never even bothered to open. If she didn't want them, I would deal with them. By the time I finished moving, I was drenched in sweat at the community gate. Just then, Willow walked by with a group of people. Willow's best friend, Maria, who always looked down on me, saw me in such a pathetic state and immediately raised her voice. Isn't this Willow's door guard? Did you forget to wear your leash today? Why are you out here instead of at home cooking? I didn't respond. Turning to walk away, Maria picked up a water bottle from the ground and threw it at my head. Pick up your trash. Aren't you deaf? There's a bottle here. Why don't you pick it up and sell it for money? She laughed hysterically. Since Willow and I got together, Maria had often humiliated me, and Willow never stopped her. Everyone assumed Willow was fine with it. In their eyes, I was just a lowly person who didn't belong in their circle. If it were before, I would have smiled and apologized. But today, I had no intention of doing that. I sneered. If I were a trash collector, I'd start with you. I turned to leave, but she grabbed my arm. Who told you to leave? I had always been the one to lower myself for them, but now I was pushing back, which infuriated all the privileged heirs. I was forced to turn back, and that was when I saw Willow in another man's arms, silently staring at me. She said, "Trash collector, don't talk big. It's meaningless. Look clearly, Makoto is back, and we're the perfect match. He's the one for me. I suggest you don't make a fool of yourself and leave." The man with Willow was looking me up and down. His platinum blonde hair, luxury brand clothes, and overall rebellious vibe screamed celebrity. No wonder Willow had been chasing him all these years. Makoto extended his hand, but his eyes were full of arrogance. So, you're Willow's husband, right? I'm Makoto. Before he finished speaking, Willow grabbed his hand, blocking him from me. She said sweetly, "Makoto, don't misunderstand. You left years ago, and I wasn't going to sit around. What's this talk about husbands? I only have eyes for you. Don't you see my feelings?" She placed his hand on her chest and looked at him affectionately. The crowd erupted into cheers. Get together. Get together. Chapter 4. Willow's friend, Maria, took the opportunity to suggest, Makoto just returned to the country, and he's unfamiliar with everything. Why not let him stay at Willow's place? You can take care of him. She nudged me and said, "Brother-in-law, you wouldn't mind, would you?" Willow's gaze suddenly shifted to me. Everyone knew how deeply I loved her. Anything could be discussed, but if it had to do with Willow, I would get jealous and lose my mind. I chuckled lightly and said, "Sure, no problem." Hearing this, Willow immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Everyone, holding bottles of alcohol, surrounded Makoto and headed to the house. They were having a great time, completely disregarding me. Perhaps feeling guilty, Willow came to find me alone. She said, "George, you know Makoto's been abroad for so long. I'm not at ease with him living alone. He'll stay at our place for a few days. Don't get petty and complain to my mom." I sneered. We were getting divorced. Even if it were to be discussed, what did it matter? And did she ever think about how hard it was for me to give up everything for her? To get used to everything on my own? To suffer through it all? Willow could consider Makoto's comfort, but when it came to me, she couldn't see a thing. With a blank expression, I replied in a calm tone, "It's fine. He can stay as long as he wants. I don't mind. After all, I would be leaving soon." Willow must have expected me to get angry or complain to her mom, but she didn't anticipate that I would be this calm, as though I were talking about someone else's business. However, she had no time to think further. She was too happy to finally have time alone with Makoto. Willow, afraid I might change my mind, put Makoto's luggage in the biggest bedroom the very next day, but unexpectedly, I didn't come home for the whole week. Willow was thrilled. This gave her and her idol a chance to spend more time alone. She personally washed Makoto's clothes, hung his intimate garments on the balcony, and even tried cooking, busy making him heart-shaped bento boxes. Willow not only happily cooked, covered in oil, but also seemed to enjoy playing the little wife. She posted many photos on social media, but because Makoto's identity couldn't be publicly exposed, she could only subtly show off her affection. She posted, "Cooking for someone I like, even if I burn myself. It's happiness. A simple 3 dishes and a soup. Is this the taste of home?" Happiness bubbling up. "I wish I could stay home every day." Some unaware followers commented, "Has Willow finally fallen for her brother-in-law?" Willow quickly replied, "Not him. He's not worthy of eating food I make." I sneered and refreshed the page, only to find that the comment had been deleted. Willow then suddenly sent me a message asking, "Why haven't you been home? Where have you been? Makoto wants to eat pig's stomach soup. Hurry back and make it for him." I didn't even need to guess. Willow must have been furious, but she would never admit it. She probably missed the meals I used to make. I always remembered her preferences. No matter how complicated the dish, I would gladly learn it just for her. In the week that she had to cook herself, she had finally realized how much effort went into what seemed simple. After just 1 week, she was already exhausted, but I had done this for her for 5 years without a word. Thinking about this, Willow decided to give me a call. In the past, I would always report to her wherever I went. This week, I had vanished without a trace, and I didn't actively check on her either. Before Willow could dial, I quickly sent her a message. I don't know how. Short and direct. Willow must have felt that my attitude toward her was changing. In her memory, I had never once refused her request, let alone rejected her. This was the first time I had refused her outright. Before she could process what was happening, I sent her a photo. "I'm in the hospital. I won't be coming back for a while." The photo showed an 4 drip in my hand, which she would recognize as mine. In reality, I was fine, and the picture was from years ago. But now that I had decided to divorce, I had no desire to engage with Willow and bring unnecessary trouble. The chat box lit up with typing, then disappeared, and Willow finally sent me a long voice message. She asked, "Are you mute? You can't even say you're sick, and instead act like you're dead to get my attention. How boring. Don't forget to take your medicine. Don't go and die. I'll be a widow then." From Willow's awkward voice message, I could tell she was somewhat worried, but I immediately shook my head. How could Willow care about me? All she cared about was Makoto. She was probably glad I wasn't coming back so she could have more time alone with him. But a few days later, I still returned home. I had left some important documents behind when I moved out, so I needed to pick them up. At 8 p.m., I opened the door, and the first thing I saw was Willow and Makoto having dinner together, gazing at each other lovingly. I frowned and told myself I just had to hold on for another week, and I would finally be free. So, I walked in with a furrowed brow, but to my surprise, Willow didn't scold me. Instead, she invited me to join them. She said, "George, we're having hot pot tonight. I remember it's your favorite. You're the man of this house. Come eat with us." I froze. This was the first time Willow acknowledged me as the man of the house in front of an outsider, especially in front of the men she was madly in love with, Makoto. Since she said that, I couldn't refuse her face, so I sat next to them. Willow barely ate anything during the hot pot. She kept busy, making sauce for Makoto, cooking the food, and serving him, almost never taking her eyes off of him. Chapter 5. Makoto gave me a half smile as he not only demanded Willow feed him directly, but also leaned in closer to her from time to time, acting like they were inseparable. I watched coldly, saying nothing, just eating my own food. Makoto, clearly disappointed, suddenly stood up to serve me soup. "Mr. Wong, this nourishing soup was specially made by Willow at 3 a.m. this morning. It's pretty good. You should try it," he said. As he stood up to serve the soup, he lost his balance and spilled the entire bowl. Willow screamed and instinctively grabbed Makoto's hand, carefully checking for burns, but where Willow couldn't see, I felt the scalding soup pour onto my chest. My chest turned red and swollen instantly. I held back from screaming, but I could feel the skin forming blisters, the pain shooting through me like needles. I couldn't help but gasp. She turned to me in a panic. "George, are you okay?" Willow rushed to check on me, and for the first time, I saw real worry in her eyes. She exclaimed, "How did you get burned like this? Let's get you to the hospital right away." Though Willow's concern seemed genuine, I just gritted my teeth and remained silent. Makoto muttered, "Big guys, just a few blisters, it's nothing." Unlike me, who has to worry about my hands for the tour, his complaint grabbed Willow's full attention. She rushed to his side, examining his hands, which had 2 faint red spots from splashed oil. Makoto scoffed, shaking her hand off. "What's the big deal? You should go check on George." "I'm fine," Willow insisted. "You're crazy. Your hands are crucial for your music and performances. You're a top star. You've never been hurt like this." "No, we're getting you checked out." Makoto's words, coupled with his downcast expression, pushed Willow to take his hand and rush out the door. But she stopped for a moment, turned to me, and apologized. "You know Makoto's a star. He needs to take care of his skin more than anyone. I'll take him to the hospital. You go by yourself." I watched them leave, their figures fading from sight. Only then did I feel the searing pain in my chest. I called my assistant, then drove myself to the hospital to have the burn treated. When I arrived at the burn unit, the entrance was already surrounded by security, and ordinary people couldn't get through. A nurse, seeing my injury, quickly suggested, "Sir, the burn unit has been rented by Miss Liu today. You should go to another hospital. You don't want to delay treatment." I heard her boyfriend was burned. She's so frantic. She spent a fortune to rent out the entire floor and hire top specialists. Miss Liu's crazy in love. It's just like a storybook. Yeah, I just saw them. They really are a perfect match. Perfect match. I couldn't help but laugh. A married woman bringing another man to the hospital, abandoning her husband, all for some celebrity. These two were a perfect match. All right. After getting my wounds treated at another hospital, I quickly went home to grab my documents. Just as I was finishing up, I received a message from my parents. It was a video from them and some family friends abroad. The background was the villa where I grew up, with my parents' warm smiles and their welcoming words, and it filled me with a sudden warmth. That was the environment I knew, where I was meant to spread my wings. 5 years ago, I came to this unfamiliar place, and now, with my parents aging, it was time for me to go back and take over the family business. I was tired of this game, tired of pretending with these rich kids. Chapter 6. Over the past few years, I had established myself in the mainland market. I knew deep down that I was an entrepreneur, someone who should be immersed in the world of fame and fortune, showing off what I had learned. I was fortunate that my parents and friends supported me. This long-lost support made me sigh with relief, and I felt the weight that had been pressing on my chest for so long lift with that exhale. At that moment, I felt incredibly light and free. I began staying at the company, preparing thoroughly for a remote project that was a week away. I silenced my phone and set it aside, focusing entirely on sorting out the company's finances. By the time everything was in order, several days had passed. When I finally opened my phone again, I saw dozens of missed calls and messages. Without exception, they were all from Willow. I was astonished. Before this, Willow had almost never reached out to me, let alone sent so many messages. Just as I was frozen in surprise, an unknown call came through. I instinctively answered, and immediately, the sound of angry accusations filled my ears. The voice on the other end yelled, "You watchdog, where have you been? Don't you know Willow's been going crazy trying to find you? Don't think disappearing like this will get my sister's attention. I'll tell you, Makoto is the one who deserves her, not you. You're not even worthy of carrying my sister's shoes. Stop dreaming." Before I could respond, Maria hung up, leaving me confused. Willow was looking for me. Why would Willow be looking for me? The woman who came and went like the wind, who hated being constrained by anyone, who never bothered to ask where I was. Could her best friend have made a mistake? But when I checked my phone again, I saw 99 missed calls, all from Willow. It seemed Willow really was trying to reach me. Not wanting to leave anything unresolved on the last day, I decided to go home, still feeling perplexed. As soon as I entered the house, the housekeeper came rushing out with tears in her eyes. "Mr. Wong, you're finally back. You don't know what it's been like while you were gone." Miss Willow wasn't happy with the food we made, and she criticized everything we did. She wouldn't let us do anything and told us to leave. She was furious. Then the butler came out, tears streaming down his face as he started blaming Willow for everything. I finally understood. Willow had gotten used to my care, and once I was gone, she had started taking out her frustration on everyone. But what did it matter? I was about to disappear completely from Willow's life. No matter how uncomfortable she was, she would have to face the reality. I glanced around at the scattered trash and clothes on the floor. Frowning, I picked up the clothes and placed them on the couch. The couch made a slight noise, and to my surprise, there was Willow. Her face flushed from drinking. She looked at me with a mix of annoyance and amusement. So, you finally decided to come home. Where have you been this whole time? I looked down at her, speaking in a calm tone. I had some business to attend to. Had to go on a business trip. Willow furrowed her brow. I never knew you cared so much about company matters. You always put me first, didn't you? It's true that in the past, I had always prioritized Willow, but what she didn't know was that it was part of my work. I once had feelings for Willow, but I also knew how fragile those feelings were. They couldn't compare to the straightforward benefits of business. Since I couldn't obtain affection, I had to secure the benefits I deserved in the commercial world, but I hesitated. If it weren't for protecting Willow, I should have already returned home to take charge of my family's business, rather than stay here playing house husband. But I couldn't tell her that, so I just took a sip of water and replied indifferently. The company has a lot going on lately, so I've been busy. Willow's anger seemed to hit a wall, but she had no other way to express it. All she could do was complain with a touch of petulance. I know I messed up last time. It wasn't intentional. I didn't mean to leave you hanging. But you know how Makoto is. He's fragile. Celebrities are constantly in the spotlight. They can't afford to be even slightly hurt. He got hurt in my house, so I had to take responsibility for it. Don't be petty about it. And besides, you agreed to let him stay here in the first place. Why make such a big deal now? She sighed dramatically. Anyway, I've already had him move out. You can stop fussing now. Just move back in. There was a hint of reproach in Willow's tone. I knew exactly why. My presence had forced Makoto to move out, so Willow couldn't live with her favorite idol. But I didn't care. I merely nodded, knowing Willow had no serious issue, so I could leave without worry. Just as I turned to walk away, Willow called out to me, "Darling." Her voice was unusually sweet, almost coquettish. "I'm starving. It's been so long since I've had your cooking. Can you make me a meal?" I turned back to face her, snickering as I pointed at the white bandage on my chest. "You seem to have forgotten that I'm still injured." Willow froze for a moment when she saw the large bandage beneath my white shirt. She had indeed forgotten about my injury, and hers was far worse than Makoto's. She could only cough to cover her awkwardness. "I remember, of course, I do. That's why I brought you a gift, to make up for it," she said. Then Willow stood up, lightly trailing her fingers over my chest. She quickly unfastened the shoulder strap of her silk robe, revealing a flash of skin. Chapter 7. I watched as Willow made a move toward me, her provocative gestures making my eyes darken. It had been 5 years, and this was the first time Willow was willing to come close to me. Although we were married, Willow had always looked down on me. She never let me touch her, and even when we slept, I was forced to sleep in the study. I wasn't sure why she was suddenly so proactive. Was she trying to make up for her past neglect of me for the sake of her first love? I had hoped for this kind of intimacy before, but not in this way. A sense of mockery surged within me. What I once desired now seemed beneath me. Willow, still playing the seductress, noticed that I remained indifferent. With no sign of interest, she began to panic slightly. She said, "The atmosphere isn't right today. Let's have a candlelit dinner sometime soon. A little drink. After all, you're my husband, and there are some things we should put on the agenda." Before she could finish, she was interrupted by her friend Maria, who rushed into the room. "Makoto, how could Willow possibly be mad at you when she likes you so much?" Maria said, pulling Makoto in. Upon seeing Willow in her seductive attire, Maria exclaimed in surprise, "You see, Willow is doing everything she can to win you back. She even learned girl group dances for you. And look, she's all dressed up." Makoto, seeing Willow in such an outfit, blushed deeply. Willow opened her mouth but offered no explanation. I lowered my head and chuckled coldly. Then without hesitation, I shoved Willow, dressed in her seductive sleepwear, directly into Makoto's arms. "Since you're dressing up for him, why be shy?" I said. Willow's face turned bright red, and she lowered her head, hiding in Makoto's arms, but couldn't resist sneaking a glance at me. She didn't understand why I was being so generous today. Something felt off, but she couldn't put her finger on it. However, Willow soon stopped thinking about it. She became immersed in the warm embrace of Makoto, swaying seductively in the dim, charged atmosphere. The guests cheered and clapped, egging them on. Maria pulled me aside, not letting me leave. "Come on, don't leave. Open your eyes and watch what a perfect match they make. You better give up on Willow, and divorce her sooner rather than later," she said, smiling mischievously. I didn't have any intention of leaving. Tomorrow was the last day of the cooling-off period for the divorce, so I simply stayed, grabbed a glass of red wine, and sat in the corner, silently observing their display of affection. The lavish penthouse had been transformed into a party center. Champagne glasses hung from above, the crystal chandeliers glittered, and upbeat dance music blasted in our ears. Everyone was lost in the luxurious, intoxicating atmosphere. In the middle of it all, Willow lifted her silk robe, exposing her smooth, white thighs. She pressed herself against Makoto, dancing seductively. The rich young men surrounded them, shouting and whistling, urging them on. Willow is really going all out. A lady who studied everything from classical music to painting and calligraphy, willing to give it all up just to please Makoto. One of them said, "Yeah, did you see that necklace Makoto's wearing? It's the pigeon blood ruby that Willow's family has passed down for generations. There's no other like it." Willow gave it to him. A really big gesture. Another chimed in. Willow has been chasing Makoto for so long. Even a stone would melt in her hands. She's willing to follow him all over the world, work for him, and even pay for his concerts. This is what you call true devotion. Someone else added, "Yeah, Makoto, that celebrity you announced before, she can't compare to Willow. If you gave the word, Willow would marry you in a heartbeat. Why don't you just kiss her and make it official?" One more voice suggested, "Yeah, kiss, kiss." The crowd cheered. As they laughed and clapped around me, I calmly sipped my wine, quietly observing. I watched as they surrounded my wife and another man, encouraging them to declare their love for one another. At that moment, my assistant entered from outside, walked up to me, and respectfully whispered in my ear, "Mr. Wang, everything has been arranged for your trip abroad. The private jet your wife arranged is ready. It will take off in 2 hours. Is there anything else you would like to arrange?" I took the file he handed me, opened it just a crack, and saw the stamped documents. I let out a deep sigh of relief, looking at the people around me, dancing wildly, and the chaos of the home I had long since grown tired of. I realized that in 2 hours, I would be leaving all of this behind. I would return to the life of a CEO, to the long-awaited freedom. The red wine in my glass seemed all the more delicious, the taste rich and satisfying. Chapter 8. I laughed genuinely and shook my head. I don't have any other arrangements. Just get ready to leave. But then I turned to give another instruction. "Oh, by the way, I don't want anyone to know I'm leaving. If Miss Liu asks about my whereabouts, you don't need to tell her." My assistant looked up in surprise, his disbelief evident on his face. Why should I bother with farewells? For 5 years, I had relentlessly shown kindness to Willow, not only because of our childhood bond but also due to the terms of a contract. It was my mother-in-law's wish for Willow to move on from her sadness. Now, the 5-year agreement was up, and I had fulfilled my part of the contract perfectly. It seemed Willow had moved on from her sorrow, especially now that her Makoto was back. Whether I stayed or left, Willow surely wouldn't care. I smiled and explained, "I don't want to stir up trouble. Keep it quiet that I'm leaving. Just do as I say." The loud music blared in the background, and a high-pitched voice suddenly cut through the noise, asking, "Leaving? Where are you going?" I turned around to see Willow, her face full of shock. My brow twitched, but I quickly calmed myself, pointing to my injury. "It's nothing. My wound got infected. I'm going to the hospital." "You should go find your Makoto," I said. Willow's eyes flashed with confusion. She couldn't understand why George kept pushing her toward Makoto lately. It seemed he didn't care about her movements at all. Even when she had just called my name, I hadn't reacted. She asked, "Why do you keep pushing me toward Makoto?" Her sudden question caught me off guard. For 5 years, every time, Willow silently left me to find Makoto. Did I still need a reason? Why was she so bewildered now? I didn't dwell on it, just smiled and replied, "Because I need to go to the hospital. I can't hang out with you guys. Don't you and Makoto get along well? Go have fun with him." I maintained a calm expression, and though Willow felt something was off, she didn't press the matter further. Maria, her best friend, grabbed Willow and ran to Makoto. The two of them began cutting into a cake, and Makoto playfully smeared a piece of cake on Willow's nose. Willow blushed and lowered her head shyly, while the crowd around them grew louder. They cheered, "Get together, get together." I sat quietly, neither stopping them nor participating. I just pulled out my phone and checked the time. In an hour, my flight would take off. I wanted to savor this final moment of solitude. However, to Maria, my silence seemed like deep sadness. She deliberately handed me the microphone and questioned, "Are you feeling like a lost dog now? Seeing two people so perfectly matched, do you think you're no longer worthy of Willow? That you've fallen so low? Today, in front of everyone, if you're sensible, you'll step aside. We'll all admire you for being a man. What do you think?" Willow furrowed her brow and was about to pull Maria away, but I took the microphone from her. "All right, since Miss Liu likes Makoto, I'll do the noble thing and step aside. I'll divorce her and make room for them," I said. Willow froze, stunned, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. The room fell silent. After all, everyone knew how deeply I loved Willow. I had worked so hard for this marriage. How could I just give it up? Maria was the first to laugh. "Ah, another act of self-sacrifice. Right, last time you used this trick, making Willow worry for days. It won't work this time." Hearing this, Willow visibly relaxed, her expression softening. Chapter 9. I adjusted my clothes, stood up, and said, The divorce agreement is on the bedside table in the bedroom, believe it or not. I wish you both a happy ending. I'm leaving now." As I walked away without a second glance, Willow felt a sudden sense of unease. She subconsciously told herself that I was just joking, as Maria had said. But as she watched my resolute figure disappear, her heart began to race. Willow didn't understand why she felt so anxious, so she ignored everyone trying to stop her and called out to me with a desperate voice. "George, come back." But her voice was drowned out by the music, and she was stopped by the crowd around her. Maria said, "Makoto is still here. Why do you care about that guy? It's pointless. Last time, didn't you get fooled by him? Don't bother with him. Let's continue having fun." Willow looked at my already disappeared figure. Letting go of her worries, she turned her attention back to the dance floor. She thought to herself, whatever happens, happens later. After all, it didn't matter much if she didn't deal with it today. Meanwhile, I had already reached the tarmac, putting on my headset and boarding the plane. As the plane took off, and I watched the city I had lived in for 5 years slowly shrink into the distance, I felt a sense of relief. The oppressive life was finally coming to an end. Goodbye, Willow. Goodbye, F-City. Goodbye to this unbearable marriage. And now, George's life was about to begin anew. I relaxed into my seat, a light smile tugging at my lips, and soon fell into a deep sleep. Willow continued to play and party with the others. The group moved on to a seaside villa, celebrating until dawn. By the time Willow was tired and ready to return, 5 days had passed. The house was empty. Willow absent-mindedly called George's name, but after calling several times, there was no answer. Only the housekeeper came out to greet her. "Where is he?" Willow asked. The housekeeper handed her a cup of tea and took the bag from her hands before hesitantly responding. "Mr. Wang hasn't been home for many days. Perhaps he's too busy with work." Willow, furious, knocked over the tea in her hand and stormed into the house. This wasn't the first time George had ignored her. The last time, he had been burned, and Willow had worriedly sent him many messages. He hadn't replied, and in his petty mood, he stayed at the office for a long time without coming home. Willow had thought she had been understanding enough, but George had to make such a scene again, running away from home at the slightest provocation. It really made her angry. As she walked through the house, something felt off. It seemed like there was less stuff around. The wall paintings were gone. Many of the figurines and trinkets were missing, and even the framed photo of the two of them was nowhere to be found. That photo was something George always kept close. No matter how messy the house was, he would always clean and maintain it. But now, it was gone without a trace. Willow's heart sank, and the uneasy feeling quickly turned to unexplainable fear. She began to search for any trace of George's belongings, but after a long time, it was as if he had disappeared into thin air. Everything he had left behind was gone, and so was he. Breathing heavily, Willow tried to collect her thoughts and suddenly remembered something George had said at the party a few days ago. She rushed into the bedroom and opened the nightstand. What caught her eye was a document. The moment she saw the heading, Willow's face turned ashen. The document was clearly titled Divorce Agreement, and when Willow frantically flipped to the last page to check the signature, she saw her own name at the bottom. Willow collapsed to the floor, her mind spinning. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. The signature was unmistakably hers, not a printed font, but her handwriting. But when had she signed this divorce agreement? She tried to recall, and suddenly it hit her. When they were having dinner and drinking porridge, George had handed her a contract. At the time, she was busy chatting with Makoto and didn't even look at it. Could that contract have been the divorce agreement? Willow clenched the document tightly, crumpling it in frustration. She seemed to be venting her anger as she balled it up and threw it into the corner. Divorce? George had actually initiated the divorce. It was ridiculous. Had he forgotten when he proposed to her? Kneeling on broken glass, blood pouring from his knees, swearing in front of everyone that he would love her forever. Had he forgotten these 5 years, where he had done everything, cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, all to win her favor? These 5 years had passed, and only when Makoto returned had George begun to get jealous. How laughable. Willow was sure that once George had calmed down, he would come back to her. Embarrassed, she didn't pay attention to the divorce agreement because she was completely confident that no one in this world, except George, would love her with such intensity and devotion. Chapter 10. Perhaps Willow had thrown such a tantrum that even the housekeeper wisely avoided mentioning George's name. It wasn't until her best friend Maria noticed Willow hadn't been out to socialize lately that she decided to visit her at home. When Maria walked into the room, she was shocked by the disarray. The curtains were drawn, pillows scattered everywhere. She put her hands on her hips and said angrily, "Where's that good-for-nothing George? Why hasn't he come to clean up?" The housekeeper hesitated and replied, "Mr. Wang has been away for several days." Maria, taken aback, asked, "He hasn't come back?" At the party that day, she had thought George's mention of divorce was just a joke. After all, a young lady like Willow, from the Liu family, Was a height George, a man of such humble origins, could never reach in his lifetime. Who would truly divorce Lou family's daughter just out of a moment of anger? The housekeeper added a few more details and mentioned the divorce agreement in the nightstand. That's when Maria realized, with a jolt of realization, that she had been wrong. Looking at Willow, who was lying listlessly on the couch with a vacant expression, Maria began to think bitterly. Without George, Willow could be with Makoto and they could openly become the golden couple everyone envied. But because of George, everything in their circle was in chaos. The more Maria thought about it, the more she despised George. She quickly took Willow's arm and tried to cheer her up. Isn't it a good thing that this unlucky star is gone? Makoto's back in town. Willow, don't you think it's time to consider your future? I've been waiting for Makoto to be my real brother-in-law. Willow suddenly shoved her away and snapped. What nonsense are you talking about? Maria staggered backward and fell to the floor. She knew full well the power of Willow's position in the Liu family and didn't dare to argue back. Willow, George has already divorced you. Isn't that the perfect opportunity for you and Makoto to be together? Why not just be with him? Willow's face darkened, and she shot back angrily. Who said we're divorced? Our matters are none of your business. But Maria's words, combined with the fact that she couldn't get through to George's phone lately, made Willow realize the painful truth. George really did want a divorce. He wasn't joking. In a fit of rage, Willow grabbed everything on the table and slammed it to the floor. All these years, she had been generous with George, yet now he was the one who brought up divorce. She thought for a moment and immediately contacted her assistant at the company, saying, "Tell George to stop hiding at the office. Call him and have him come home right now." On the other end, the assistant had clearly been prepared for her call and answered smoothly. "Miss Liu, Mr. Wang has already resigned from his position as general manager here and has not been at the company for some time. We haven't been able to contact him." Willow, furious, hung up the phone and dialed George's number again, but as expected, it went unanswered. Refusing to give up, she tried calling Maria's phone, the housekeeper's, and everyone else's, but each time, a robotic female voice informed her, "Sorry, the number you've dialed is no longer in service. Please try again later." George hadn't just blocked her, he had completely cancelled his phone number. Willow's mind was in chaos. Overwhelmed with a sense of frustration and anger, she immediately drove out, running several red lights and aimlessly driving around the streets. Only when she calmed down did she realize she had no idea where to look for George. She only knew George worked as a low-level employee in their company, but she had never bothered to ask about his background, where he was from, where he lived, or even what his other hobbies were. So, she gritted her teeth and headed to Liu Corporation. Even though she was the eldest daughter of the Liu family, she never took part in the family business, and she felt a bit nervous. When she met with the vice president, she quickly asked politely, "Uncle Lee, do you know where George is?" The vice president was well informed. He glanced at Willow, then continued with his work, replying sarcastically, "You've been married to George for 5 years and you're asking me about him. How would I know where he is? George's office is right next door. Why don't you go check for yourself? You don't even know where he works." Willow was left speechless. Chapter 11. She truly had no idea where to find him, and it was only with the assistant's guidance that she ended up in my office. The large office was furnished with a folding bed and some of his personal belongings, because Willow often got angry and would make George go to the office to sleep. This place had nearly become a second home for him. A pang of sympathy flashed in Willow's eyes as she realized how bad things had gotten for George when she wasn't looking. She never knew that he had been living in such a miserable state when she wasn't around. But now, the world was so big, and she didn't know where to look for George. As she gazed out the window at the twinkling lights of countless homes, none of them seemed to shine for her. At that moment, Willow felt a deep ache in her chest. In the past, George would always wait up for her, leaving a light on at home no matter how late she came back. It was a warmth she had only come to appreciate after losing it. But now George had decisively left her. Why was that? Just as Willow was lost in these thoughts, Liu mother called, "Willow, come home. There's something we need to discuss." With a sigh, Liu mother continued, "Since you and George have divorced, and things with you and Makoto have become so public, how about?" Willow impatiently cut her off. "Mom, I haven't agreed to divorce him." Liu mother was stunned into silence for a long moment before replying. "But George has already sent the divorce certificate to the house, don't you know?" Hearing Willow's silence on the other end of the line, Liu mother realized that Willow still didn't know the divorce was already a done deal. She thought George simply hadn't told Willow he was leaving for abroad, but she hadn't expected him to keep it so well hidden. Willow didn't expect her own mother to know about the divorce, while she had been kept in the dark. Looking at the divorce certificate her mother had sent, Willow felt a tightness in her chest, her anger nearly choking her. She had thought that George had only signed the divorce agreement with her, but a month had passed, and he had already gone ahead and completed the divorce without her knowing. The 1-month cooling-off period had already passed. It suddenly hit her. George had already decided to divorce her a month ago, and she had been completely oblivious. Willow felt a pang of sorrow. Meanwhile, Lou's mother continued lamenting. Back then, when you were so depressed over Makoto, I asked George to help you. Now that Makoto has returned to the country, maybe it's time for you two to reconnect. Why don't you? Willow cut her off sharply. That's not going to happen. I never agreed to a divorce. Willow didn't know why, but every time Makoto's name was mentioned, she felt a sense of discomfort, as if a knot was tightening in her chest. Though her marriage with George had long been hollow, Willow had grown accustomed to having him by her side. The thought of completely separating from him made her feel uneasy. On one side was George, who loved her unconditionally, and on the other was Makoto, the idol she had chased for so long when she was young. Willow was caught between these two worlds, unable to make a choice. Sensing Willow's hesitation, Lou's mother immediately sent over a contract. Willow opened it with little interest, but the more she read, the wider her eyes grew. At the very end of the contract, she saw George's signature. Willow screamed, "Mom, what is this contract about?" Hearing Willow's hysterical cry, Lou's mother's heart sank, and she finally told the truth. "You've forgotten, haven't you? George was the little Wong boy you used to bully when you were young. You grew up together as childhood friends. When you were 8, he went abroad. He saw how upset you were and was worried about you. So I asked him to help you get over it, and the Wong family needed the Liu family's support. So a commercial marriage was quickly arranged, as long as George stayed with Willow for 5 years and helped her recover from her heartbreak. After that, they would part ways and go their separate routes. To be fair, George had done his part well. He had let go of his rich family background, set aside his pride, and devoted himself entirely to helping Willow. There was even a moment when Lou's mother thought George would always be there for Willow, and she had started to see him as her real son-in-law. But who would have known? Even after 5 years, Willow still hadn't been moved by him. She remained stubborn and had even humiliated him by bringing Makoto home. So, when George finally asked for a divorce, Lou's mother felt there was nothing more to be done. Lou's mother kept rambling on the phone, but Willow couldn't hear anything anymore. She stared at the commercial marriage contract, reading each word slowly, almost not believing her eyes. Had George's devoted, dog-like love for her over the past 5 years all been part of this contract, just to fulfill his promise? But the love and passion in his eyes when he proposed to her, that was real. Willow had seen it clearly. If he didn't love her, how could he have patiently taken care of her during every drunken night, cooking for her, making her hangover soup? If he didn't love her, how could he have tolerated the humiliation from her best friend and stayed by her side willingly? But the contract couldn't lie. It clearly outlined everything George had promised to do for her, from small things like doing laundry and cooking, to bigger things like not interfering with Willow's private life. It was all there in black and white. The more Willow read, the colder she felt inside. Chapter 12. It turned out that all of George's kindness towards her had been planned from the very beginning, all part of a prearranged arrangement. The special attention Willow thought George had for her was, in fact, without any real affection. A faint hope Willow had cautiously held onto completely shattered. Her heart felt tightly squeezed in pain, and she could no longer hold it in. She cried uncontrollably. On the other end of the phone, Lou's mother was also shocked. In her memory, her daughter had always been proud and reserved, almost looking down on everyone. Even when Makoto had broken up with her, she hadn't cried with such a loss of dignity. Lou's mother tried to comfort her a few times, but every time the words reached her lips, she swallowed them. Perhaps only by experiencing matters of the heart could one truly understand their own feelings. When Willow had finally cried herself out, she asked in a choked voice, "Mom, you must know where George is now, right?" Lou's mother, hearing her daughter's hopeful inquiry, sighed deeply. Not only had George asked her not to disclose his whereabouts, but it was also part of their agreement. Legally, she was bound to keep it a secret. She replied, "Willow, I've promised I can't say." Lou's mother sighed again and continued, "Besides, George is meticulous. Even if you do know, what good would it do? George had always been a man who planned ahead. He must have already foreseen this situation, which is why when Lou's mother had asked him whether he would return home to inherit the family business, his response had been vague. Even Lou's mother didn't know where he was now. Willow's last glimmer of hope disappeared. She never imagined George would leave so completely, so decisively. He had once suddenly entered her world, and now he was leaving without a word. Willow blankly hung up the phone, sitting in the empty living room, speechless, her mind a complete blank. At that moment, her phone suddenly rang. Willow reflexively answered. A voice on the other end said, "Willow, where are you? Makoto is in trouble. Come quickly." When Willow arrived at the bar, she saw a group of people surrounding Makoto. She didn't know any of them, but she recognized the woman standing at the front. It was Sophia. Makoto's previously announced fiancé. She pushed through the crowd, and her friend Maria quickly grabbed her arm. Willow, come here. These people are causing trouble for Makoto. As Maria's words fell, all eyes in the room turned to her, and Sophia glared at her fiercely, her gaze almost piercing her. Willow was confused. No one had ever dared to openly oppose her like this. Frowning, she asked, "What are you doing here? You has-been actress." Sophia sneered. "I'm a has-been actress, and what about you? A shameless woman who's clinging to a married man. You just can't resist someone else's husband, can you?" Willow's anger flared. Even though she had often been chasing after Makoto for the past 5 years, she had never crossed the line, and even when she gave him gifts, it was always in front of many people. There had never been any private exchanges between them. Sophia, once famous, was now a fading star, but in reality, she was the heir to the Shin family business. She had been abroad handling business and studying at a business school. She and Makoto had fallen in love due to a project, but later, Sophia had decided to quit the entertainment industry to help her family. Due to her busy schedule and their differing careers, their relationship had slowly drifted apart, which gave Willow the opportunity to get closer to Makoto. When Sophia realized what was happening, she sent people to investigate. She found out that while she had been busy with work, Makoto and Willow had been traveling the world together, spending her money, and completely disregarding Sophia, the legitimate fiancée. Sophia, successful and proud, had never been humiliated like this. Thinking about it made her so angry that she couldn't contain herself. Makoto had publicly announced that they were divorced, but Sophia had never been informed. His announcement was unilateral, and she did not recognize it, nor would she ever accept it. Sophia's gaze turned cold as she spoke. "Miss Liu, you come from a noble family, yet you're doing this kind of thing. You're married but still going after someone else's husband. That's quite a talent." Sophia's words made Willow's face flush with both anger and shame. She clenched her fists and spat. "I'm already divorced." Everyone in the room gasped, especially Makoto, who stared at Willow in shock. Makoto had always known how deeply Willow loved him, but he had never felt that way towards her. He had always seen her as a friend, nothing more. But after he married Sophia and went abroad, they drifted apart. Over time, he realized how precious Willow's selfless love had been. A woman willing to give up everything for him was rare and precious. Chapter 13. He gradually became immersed in Willow's flattery. In Willow's eyes, he was not past his prime, but rather a shining star. Willow would carefully prepare gifts for him, nestling against him like a little woman. Unlike Sophia, who could carry everything on her own, which made him lose face as a man and feel suffocated. Even though he knew Willow had been married for years, he believed that as long as he beckoned, Willow would unconditionally return to his side. Their transgressions grew more frequent, and Makoto decided to stop pretending. Without telling Sophia, he returned to his country. He just wanted to test himself, to find out who he truly loved and who he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. His previous marriage had only been an attempt, not a reflection of the final outcome. Once back in his home country, Willow became even more caring toward him. Not even considering her husband, Makoto repeatedly provoked Willow, and each time, she stood by his side. She even gave him her house to stay in. However, the more time he spent with Willow, the more he realized he didn't have romantic feelings for her. His feelings for Willow were more about gratitude and guilt, which led him to indulge her every time. To outsiders, they appeared to be an ambiguous couple. Every time he tried to explain, he was afraid of hurting Willow. Now, hearing that Willow was divorcing her husband for him, his heart ached even more. Sophia, at that moment, bypassed Willow and embraced Makoto, saying, "Darling, I've neglected your feelings. I've ignored you for so long, and I'm sorry. I won't do it again. I'll spend more time with you. Will you come home with me? And we're not divorced yet. There's still a chance to start over, don't you think?" Makoto hesitated as he looked into Sophia's tear-filled eyes. This woman appeared tough on the outside, but was soft on the inside. It was this softness that had once made Makoto fall for her. He had loved Sophia deeply before, and even now, he couldn't push her away. Willow, anxious, cried out, "No, Makoto, you can't agree to this." She was completely panicked. George had already left her. Did that mean she was going to lose Makoto too? Makoto's departure had struck her deeply, and she didn't want to experience the same pain again. Her best friend, Maria, chimed in. "Makoto, after all this time, can't you see that Willow is the one who's truly good for you?" Makoto looked at Sophia in his arms, then glanced at the anxious Willow, and sighed deeply. As if making up his mind, he said, "Willow, thank you for all the love you've shown me over the years, but I truly only see you as a sister." Willow was completely stunned by his words. "No, that's not true." Willow almost stammered. "I've liked you since the moment you debuted. I've always supported you, voted for you, treated you like my idol. I've done so many things to stand by your side. How can you reject me?" Makoto pushed Willow away, his voice cold. I know you've done a lot for me, but there's always a layer of distance between an idol and a fan. The version of me you see may be filtered, but in reality, I'm weak and can never refuse anyone. Sophia is the one I've truly loved. I'll always remember the kindness you've shown me, but continuing to delay your future is my fault. And George treats you very well. I'm ashamed to compare. I'm sorry to have disturbed your life. From now on, we part ways. Let's not meet again. Chapter 14. As Makoto's final words fell, Willow could almost hear the sound of her heart shattering. Sophia took him and a group of people away, leaving Willow alone to drink. She downed more than 10 bottles of alcohol in one go, drinking until she vomited and lost consciousness, before Lou's mother took her home. When Willow woke up, she started shouting for more alcohol, refusing to eat and continuing to abuse herself. The repeated abandonments had almost pushed Willow to the edge of despair. Lou's mother was both anxious and heartbroken but felt helpless. George had once saved Willow, but this time, no one was there to help her. The surveillance footage from the bar was quickly uploaded by a well-meaning person and soon made headlines. At that time, I had just finished my 6th meeting of the day. A friend came into my office and handed me his phone with a gossiping grin. He said, "Isn't this the eldest daughter of the Liu family? She's trending now, and it's because of those old rumors." I glanced at the phone screen and simply hummed in response. My friend seemed deflated and tentatively asked, "Aren't you upset?" I opened my computer and continued working, replying casually, "Not at all. It's none of my business if it's about strangers." My friends knew everything about the dramatic events from 5 years ago. I had once kneeled on broken glass for Willow, married her, played the role of a simp, and then had a very public divorce. They all thought I had gone abroad because of a broken heart. So, when they saw Willow's meltdown video, they felt vindicated for me, but I appeared completely unaffected, leaving them confused about my emotions. My friend nudged me with his elbow, clearly frustrated. "What Willow did to you back then? Just hearing about it makes me angry. I almost want to kick her again." I shook my head and let out a helpless laugh. The truth is, after I went abroad and rejoined my family, I had completely forgotten about the past. I went out to dinner with my friend, and as we were about to head home later that night, my friend suddenly raised his phone excitedly, interrupting me. "George, is your ex-wife losing it?" I furrowed my brow and took the phone. When I saw the news report, I couldn't help but gasp in shock. That's when I understood what my friend meant by losing it. Willow had been divorced from me, and now Makoto had broken up with her again. Makoto had publicly announced their reconciliation, revealing that he and his wife had never truly divorced, only going through a brief marital conflict. But Willow didn't know this. She had given so much, only to end up with nothing. Watching others flaunt their love, Willow had completely fallen apart. The once glamorous eldest daughter of the Liu family, who had played in the world of fame and fortune, was now a broken mess at home. Refusing to leave the house, she wouldn't wash her face, brush her teeth, or eat. Not only that, she even resorted to self-harm and took non-prescription drugs. Without my patience and companionship, Willow had almost descended into madness. The paparazzi had caught a glimpse of Willow, who had become so thin she looked like a skeleton. Her eyes were sunken. Her hair was dull and dry. She no longer resembled the pampered young lady she once was, but instead looked like a homeless vagabond. Willow grew more and more grateful for the good I had shown her. She tried countless times to find me, but my departure had been carefully planned, and she couldn't find a single trace of me. She had no idea where I was, and so, she gave up entirely and let herself spiral. She started causing scenes at the Liu company every few days, trying to ask everyone who knew me about my whereabouts, even causing the company to trend online and damaging its reputation. She even found some of her old friends who had mocked me and made sure to punish them, forcing Maria out of her own family company and preventing any other company from hiring her, leaving Maria to sink into obscurity. She cried, screamed, and did a series of shocking things. Meanwhile, I simply drove calmly, as if I didn't know Willow at all. From the day the contract was signed, I had always considered Willow just a clause in that contract. I wanted to fulfill it as quickly as possible so I could leave. After gaining access to all of Liu's company's resources, even when Liu's mother asked me about my future plans, I simply smiled and said nothing. The years of enduring humiliation had allowed me to focus fully on my career, and I had stopped caring about Willow's affairs. What's the point of putting on a show after leaving? Willow was only my nominal ex-wife. Now, her display of deep emotions only made me laugh. My initial concern for Willow had been nothing more than a fleeting youth sentiment. From the bottom of my heart, I never truly loved Willow, so why would I mourn for her now? I dropped my friend off and drove home alone. Now, Wang's company was running smoothly in the domestic market, and I was planning to focus on the development of the new energy sector. I had been discussing its future prospects with like-minded friends during this period. My days were incredibly busy, with many meetings to attend and several prestigious universities to visit for forums. One day, after finishing my work, I was invited to attend an energy forum at an Ivy League university, accompanied by my assistant. I arrived just on time. Suddenly, there was a thunderous round of applause. I thought it was a major industry leader arriving to share the latest updates. But when the applause died down and I finally saw the person on stage, I froze in my seat. The shining, big shot on stage, I knew him. Chapter 15. The girl on stage clearly noticed me and flashed a bright smile. She said, "George, it's been a while." My surprise was genuine, because the girl on stage was none other than Anna, the student I had supported back home. Anna was the same age as me, but she had lost both of her parents at a young age and had grown up in an orphanage. When I first saw her, I was struck by Anna's determined gaze, and I immediately requested that my parents sponsor her education. I thought to myself, someone with such a strong will, unwilling to be defeated by fate, would surely achieve great things one day. I never expected that my small act of kindness would allow this fragile bamboo to grow into a towering forest, lush and vibrant. I had heard from my family that Anna had excelled in her studies and was wholly focused on academics, with no other extracurricular interests. Seeing such a talented young woman now, I felt a deep sense of pride for her. On stage, Anna's eyes shone brightly, filled with affection as she looked at me. My kindness had changed her life forever. She had once dreamed of repaying me by studying hard and growing up to be someone successful. But when she graduated with a PhD, she found out from the news that I had married Willow. Anna felt a pang of regret, but she truly wished me well from the bottom of her heart. However, after hearing about the things Willow had done to me, Anna grew more and more heartbroken. She couldn't bear to see such a kind person suffer, not deserving such a fate. After the conference, Anna and I talked for a long time. In the end, we shared a silent moment, as though we were old friends who had known each other for years. Anna glanced up at me before quickly shifting her gaze and asked, "Mr. Wang, do you have any plans for the future?" I silently shook my head, replying, "I'll focus on managing the business and expanding the company." As for my personal life, my voice trailed off uncertainly. To be honest, I had no clear expectations for my personal life. After 5 years of marriage to Willow, I didn't want to start over with someone new and embark on another marriage. Yet, deep inside, I still longed for a happy life. I just didn't know where to begin. Anna's eyes sparkled as she looked at me, and she gently passed me a plate with a slice of steak. She said, "Someone as exceptional as you deserves a better life. Don't worry, I'll always support you, whether it's in business or anything else." I smiled and nodded. I invited Anna to join my company. A year passed in the blink of an eye, and with our joint efforts, Wang's company finally went public. As I watched the employees cheering below, I was filled with mixed emotions. All my hard work had paid off, and everything I had done had been noticed. It was incredibly gratifying. Family and friends congratulated me. "George, the listing went smoothly. Mr. Wang, your future is limitless." The congratulations from my family and friends filled me with a sense of validation, and a warm current rose in my chest. I drank a few more glasses of wine in my happiness, and amidst the hazy atmosphere, Anna gently took my hand. We shared a smile, and in each other's eyes, we saw love. A month later, I decided to take Anna back to China. I felt that it was time to return to my roots. Though Anna had no parents, she had grown up in China. Before deciding to marry her, I wanted to take her to see my hometown. As soon as I returned to F-City, old friends and colleagues came flocking. Some were trying to gain favor, while others were old partners, coming to reconnect and enjoy a meal. They had heard that I had settled down abroad and expanded my business significantly. They all admired me and were happy to see how well Anna and I were doing together, so in love with each other. As we chatted, the vice president of my former company suddenly spoke up. He said, "You don't know, but Willow came looking for me recently, asking for your address." I hadn't heard Willow's name in a long time, and I was momentarily taken aback. The vice president, drunk, continued to complain in a slurred voice, "With the way she treated you back then, how could I ever tell her your address? She can dream all she wants." I laughed and humored all my friends before returning to the new villa I had bought with Anna. Though I was only briefly back in China, I hoped that Anna and I could visit regularly, so I had already bought our new home as a base for when we returned to settle here. I took Anna out to explore, shopping for all sorts of things, hoping to make up for the lost leisurely moments she hadn't had before. Chapter 16. By the time we had everything packed and loaded into the car, the trunk was nearly full, and we were ready to head home and rest. Meanwhile, at the Liu family's old residence, Willow stared blankly at a wedding photo of her and George. Even though it had been 3 years since their divorce, she still couldn't forget him. She had used every resource at her disposal to try and find any trace of George but had come up empty-handed. This wedding photo, which she had retrieved from the trash, was the only reminder she had left of him. In the picture, Willow stood far from George, but he was smiling broadly. If she could redo the photo, she would hold him tight and tell him that she truly loved him. But after all the time that had passed, She realized it was George's kindness that she couldn't forget. At first, she thought George had just been a comfort after leaving Makoto, believing she was in love with him. But when George left, Willow found herself unable to adapt to life without him. Only then did she realize that what she had felt was true love. But with Makoto between them, Willow had ignored her own heart and refused to admit that she had fallen in love with George. Now that George was no longer by her side, she knew she had taken him for granted, and she regretted not cherishing him sooner. Willow drained a bottle of alcohol in one go when there was a knock on the door. "Miss Liu, will you be attending tomorrow's business forum?" In recent years, Willow had taken over her family's business while searching for any trace of George. She knew he wouldn't give up on work, and perhaps he was somewhere out there, continuing with his life. Willow also hoped that by succeeding in business, she could prove to George that she had changed and was no longer the reckless young woman she had once been. So she had started attending business forums, and this one would be no different. I, too, had seen the guest list and was startled when I saw her name. Anna, noticing my change in expression, gently said, "If you don't want to go, I can attend alone." I squeezed her hand and smiled. "It's fine," I replied. "I knew this day would come, and I have nothing to hide. I've already moved on and started a new chapter in my life. There was no need to avoid the past. I owed nothing to the Liu family, nor to Willow." The day of the forum arrived, and all the important figures from F City attended. Willow was among them, gracefully mingling with the elites, holding a glass of wine and chatting with various business people. She wondered if, 5 years ago, George had also been in the same situation, navigating through countless conversations with strangers. Back then, she had demanded that George always be by her side, ready to drop everything for her. But now, she found herself lost in her memories, longing for what they had shared. Just then, a familiar voice reached her ears, and she froze in place, stunned. It was him, George, just as she had imagined, tall and handsome, with an aura of calm confidence. Surrounded by people, he was laughing and speaking with ease. Overcome with emotion, Willow shouted his name. I, in the middle of a conversation, heard her voice, and before I could react, someone collided into me. Willow rushed to embrace me, tears in her eyes. "George, I knew you couldn't leave me." I tried to pull away, but Anna was quicker. She shoved Willow off me, her tone firm. "Please respect yourself, miss." Our old friends quickly gathered around, frowning. "Willow, what are you doing? You're divorced. Why are you still calling him husband?" I straightened my wrinkled clothes with a look of disdain. Anna, my fiancée, was already angry at Willow's behavior, but she knew not to escalate things in such a public setting. "Let's go to the cafe downstairs," she suggested. Willow nodded, and we walked away, leaving the crowd behind. At the cafe, Willow's heart was in turmoil. She watched me, her every thought filled with regret. I had once never looked at another woman when I was with her, but now, I barely spared her a glance. Willow finally spoke, her voice trembling. "George, why did you divorce me?" I was taken aback by her question but calmly responded, "Once I fulfilled the terms of the contract, I had to move on with my life." She shook her head in disbelief. "I don't believe it. You can't tell me that everything you did for me was just because of that contract. Didn't you ever feel anything for me?" Her body trembled as she spoke, desperate for an answer, but afraid of hearing the truth. I met her gaze steadily. "No, I never had feelings for you," I continued. "When the contract was signed, our relationship was a business arrangement, a bond for family interests. I made sure to remind myself that this was merely a contract. By the time it was signed, I was already prepared for the divorce." Honestly, I had once viewed Willow through rose-colored glasses. She had been the lively, innocent girl from my youth, and I was young too. Without much experience in love, her beauty had made me feel something, but I quickly realized our connection was contractual. Did I try to love her? Perhaps, but my heart wasn't made of stone. After being neglected for Makoto's sake repeatedly, I understood the reality of our relationship. I reminded myself over and over that this was just an agreement, and I no longer had any personal feelings for Willow. Chapter 17. After 5 years of living together, I could hardly bring myself to hate Willow anymore. By the end, all I felt was relief, a sense of freedom. Hearing me say this, Willow's face drained of color. I said, "Willow, I'll say it one last time, I never loved you, whether 5 years ago or now. There is no possibility for us to ever be together again. Moreover, I already have a fiancé, and I'm very happy now. I hope you won't disturb us." I laid it out plainly. I wasn't concerned with how Willow would react. I just wanted to put an end to this, get back to the party, and deal with work. Willow stood frozen, and Anna and I walked away without a second glance. By the time Willow came to her senses, we had already gone far, and the coffee on the table had long gone cold. The forum proceeded smoothly. I was the star of the event, with many local business tycoons trying to please me. In the evening, I couldn't refuse and attended a banquet. After the meal, the waiter brought in a basket of flowers. She said, "Mr. Wang, These flowers are from Miss Willow, to celebrate your return to the country. I gave it a cursory glance and instructed my assistant to return them. Please tell Miss Lou that I only accept flowers from my wife. I won't accept any others. I looked at the lilies in the basket and couldn't help but laugh. Willow must have gotten it wrong. The lilies were Makoto's favorite flowers, while I only liked irises. The tycoons in the room were sharp, and upon seeing my sour expression, the atmosphere suddenly became awkward. The waiter, unable to make up her mind, hesitated before being dragged away by the others. But that didn't stop Willow. Every day, she sent me something. Sometimes it was flowers, sometimes gifts, sometimes delicate pastries. But most of the time, before they even reached me, I had my assistant throw them away. Willow refused to give up. Finally, she stopped me on my way home from work. She asked, "Why won't you accept anything I send? Do you really hate me that much?" I sneered. "Yeah, I hate you, you ex-wife. What's the point of pretending to be all sentimental now? Isn't it a little late? Back then, you didn't want me around because I was in your way with Makoto. Now we're divorced. Why don't you go chase your dreams and leave me alone?" Willow's eyes turned red. Her voice choked. She subconsciously panicked. She said, "No, George, I never agreed to the divorce, and after you left, I realized I didn't love Makoto. I really loved you. For Makoto, I was just enamored with his idol image, forgetting who I truly loved. Now I realize I was wrong. George, if I apologize, can we start over?" "Start over?" I laughed bitterly. The sweet memories Willow had were painful ones for me, ones I didn't want to revisit. I never wanted to go back to the past. So, I coldly pushed Willow away. I said, "You think you can't live without me, but really, you're just lonely and miss having someone cater to your every whim. You don't even understand what love is. You, as a spoiled heiress, still can't figure out your life. You can't distinguish between love and infatuation. You don't deserve anyone's love." My words were blunt. Willow's face went deathly pale. As the Liu family's eldest daughter, she was used to having people listen to her, and rarely had anyone seen her like this, defeated. But I didn't care. This was how I truly felt. I didn't linger. I walked past her and got into the car. I decided to take Anna to the Liu family's house to visit my ex-mother-in-law. Although Liu's mother had me sign the contract with ulterior motives, she had been kind to me over the years. She hadn't made things difficult for me, and had helped the Wang family with business matters. So out of respect and decency, I felt I should visit her. At the time, Liu's mother had come up with this idea to help Willow get back on her feet. But honestly, it was like trying to cure poison with poison. Liu's mother had indulged Willow too much, never teaching her how to treat others equally or how to value love and relationships. Back then, because of the Liu family's power, I had no choice but to sign the contract. As an outsider, there was nothing I could change. I sacrificed 5 years for Liu's mother's wishes. But now, I had grown into someone of influence. I had found my true love. I couldn't compromise anymore. I wouldn't sacrifice myself for others. Liu's mother watched the mature man before her and felt an immense regret. A man like George, steady and reliable, was hard to find, especially one who was a perfect match for the Liu family in both power and success. If Willow had awakened and stayed with George instead of stubbornly chasing after Makoto, the Liu family would have had such a successful son-in-law. Liu's mother thought this to herself. Now, if I were willing to marry into the Liu family and start over with Willow, it would be a very good choice. They would all support it. But after hearing Liu's mother's words, I rejected them outright. I said, "Madam, when the Wang family came back to expand their business, you helped us a lot. These gifts are a token of my appreciation. Please accept them. But as for the rest, I'm afraid I can't help you. Please don't make things difficult for me." I was no longer the young, naive man I used to be. Now, I held power, rising in the business world. I no longer had to grovel when speaking to Liu's mother. She was taken aback at first, then could only sip her tea, swallowing the words she had intended to say. Just as Anna and I were leaving the Liu family's house, we ran into a drunken Willow. She asked, "George, are you here specifically to see me?" Willow's eyes widened in surprise, her voice full of hope. Chapter 18. I looked down at her and explained calmly, "That's not it. It's just that your mother still expects me to abandon my own life and take care of you again, thinking I'm some young fool who's easy to push around. Well, I think she's mistaken." Willow's breath hitched as she suddenly remembered the agreement from 5 years ago. All the things I had done for her, all the patience I had shown, were based on sacrificing my dignity and my career. The challenges Willow posed to me, most people wouldn't have been able to bear, but I endured it for 5 whole years, patiently staying by her side until her mood improved. One can only imagine how difficult those days had been for me. Willow was overcome with guilt, her nose tingling, and she lowered her head, tears falling. She choked up, "I'm sorry, George, She knew there was nothing more to say that could fix things. Before she could finish, I took Anna's hand and walked away. Maybe the conversation from last time finally made Willow give up. She didn't try to disturb Anna and me anymore. It wasn't until a gathering in the industry that I took Anna along to introduce her to some of my friends. But soon after we arrived, an unexpected scene unfolded. "George, what are you doing here?" A sharp voice interrupted my conversation. I turned around and saw Maria, her face full of anger. It turned out that Willow had targeted Maria, leading her to lose her job, and now she was working as a waitress, serving drinks at this banquet. Maria looked at me, laughing and chatting with others, and her eyes were filled with resentment. She blamed me for changing her life. My sudden disappearance had angered Willow and led to everything that happened to her. Thinking about all the hardships she had faced in these years, Maria's anger boiled over, and she picked up a steak knife from a nearby plate and charged at me. "You don't get to be happy if I'm not." I instinctively tried to dodge, but in my peripheral vision, I saw Anna hadn't reacted yet. A warning went off in my head, and I immediately turned, wrapping my arms around Anna. In the blink of an eye, I felt a stab in my back, but before I could process the pain, the security guards reacted quickly, subduing Maria and taking the knife from her hands. Blood soaked through my dark suit, but I endured the pain and checked to make sure Anna wasn't injured. Only then did I breathe a sigh of relief. Willow rushed over, and the event organizer soon arrived, furious upon seeing one of their invited guests injured. He gritted his teeth and said, "Miss Liu, your friend really has the best manners. I remember at the banquet before Mr. Wang went abroad, Maria made things difficult for him in public, and now she causes this again. What exactly are you trying to do?" Everyone turned to Willow, watching her face turn from pale to red. I kept my composure, my eyes filled with sarcasm. Maria, seizing the moment, began to make a scene. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't disappeared, Willow wouldn't have targeted me, and I wouldn't have ended up as a waitress." At first, Maria had been trying to suck up to Willow. The little that Willow gave her each month had been enough for her to live on, not to mention the bigger circles she got to experience through Willow, being friends with rich young ladies, hoping one day to live a life of a high society lady. But now, she was left with only $3,000 a month, barely enough to pay the rent, and everything else was gone. I mocked. "How laughable. You helped Willow bully me, humiliated me, and now when things go wrong, you push all the blame onto me. What do you think you are?" My voice carried weight. Maria finally realized that the man in front of her was no longer the powerless clerk she had once known. She cursed, "You're nothing but a dog. Now that you're someone important, don't forget, you were still under our heels back then." Willow bit her lip. "Shut up." With a loud slap, Willow struck Maria across the face. Maria shouted, "Willow, I stood up for you, and you're doing this to me. George may be successful now, but he's still nothing compared to Makoto. He doesn't deserve you. Don't let him fool you." Maria's words were filled with bitterness and pain, but Willow frowned. She quickly covered Maria's mouth, warning her to be quiet. Then, she glanced at the security guards and ordered, "This madwoman is just rambling. Are you all just going to stand there? Take her away." Willow then crouched beside me and said, "George, are you all right? I'll have someone take you to the hospital." Chapter 19. I really didn't expect her to come, and I said, "Willow, I won't forget what happened today." With a stern expression, I interrupted her. "Maria wasn't really targeting me, right? And the world is so small. How did she, a familiar face, manage to get in here? Didn't you have a hand in this? You should be thankful that my fiancé wasn't hurt, or you'd be in big trouble," I added, my words firm. Everyone in the room understood the implication. Today's entire incident was orchestrated by Willow, and her goal was Anna. It was almost chilling to think someone could be so ruthless. Liu's mother turned pale and said, "George, we'll make sure to address what happened today. Whatever the cost, the Liu family will compensate you." I ignored her and took Anna to the hospital. Later that night, the Liu family villa was far from peaceful. Maria lay on the floor, bruised and battered, her skin torn from the beating, her eyes empty and lifeless. Willow was gasping for breath, her own exhaustion evident. Liu's mother paced nervously, saying, "What's the point of hitting her? Do you think the Wang family is someone we can afford to offend?" The Wang family was at its peak, while the Liu family, with no one to take over the business, was on a steep decline. Liu's father arrived home, furious. Without a word, he slapped Willow across the face. "I raised a useless child like you. You are a disgrace to the Liu family." He glanced at Maria on the floor and ordered, "Get her out of here, and make sure she disappears from F City. We can't afford any more trouble with Wang. This can never happen again." Willow tried to intervene. "Dad, even if Maria was wrong, you can't just treat her like this." Liu's father, clearly disappointed with his daughter's lack of understanding, sighed deeply. "For years, the Liu family has been prominent, and now, I see it's all going to be ruined by you. All you think about is love and men. You've become useless." He turned to Liu's mother. "And you spoiled her. Now look at the mess she's made. If you don't start disciplining her, who knows what kind of trouble she'll cause next." His anger was palpable as he warned, "If this continues, I'll disown you. Everything will go to your brother." Willow, stunned, stood frozen in place as Lu's father's harsh words sank in. "Get out. The Lu family doesn't want you anymore." Willow and her mother, pale and speechless, collapsed onto the ground, unable to process the situation. The news of the Lu family's downfall spread quickly in their social circle. Everyone could see that George had taken decisive action against them, and Willow's reckless behavior had cost her dearly. A week later, the Lu family's stock crashed, and they faced the risk of bankruptcy. This was just the beginning of George's subtle yet effective retaliation. Lu's father knew George had only given them a warning, as he waited to see their sincerity. At home, Lu's father gathered Willow and Lu's mother, his gaze cold as he spoke. "Wife, you should go to Australia and enjoy your retirement. Don't come back to China." Lu's mother was stunned, unable to react to the sudden announcement. Then, Lu's father turned to Willow. "All your shares are gone. You are no longer my daughter. From now on, you are on your own." Willow, in shock, pleaded, "Dad, I'm your daughter. How can you say that?" Lu's mother begged. "I've been with you for so many years, and now you want me gone. This is too cruel." But Lu's father remained unmoved, his expression hardening. He cared only for the Lu family's business, and everything else could be discarded. "You both can leave. The Lu family doesn't want you," he declared. Willow and her mother, now utterly defeated, collapsed to the floor, stunned by the turn of events. They had never imagined that George's influence had reached this level. News of the Lu family's downfall spread quickly, and people began whispering about George's actions. It was clear he had not spared them in his pursuit of revenge for Willow's past manipulation. "Anna and I were preparing to return to our home country. While packing, Anna asked, 'Are we going back so soon?' I hugged her from behind and laughed. 'What, don't you want to get married?' Blushing, Anna didn't respond, but it was clear that everything had changed between us. She had seen my true feelings, and she agreed to marry me. As for me, I no longer wanted to stay in F-City, weary of Willow's entanglements. Just as we were about to leave, Anna showed me something on her phone. She said, 'Do you remember the star, Makoto?' I paused. Makoto had disappeared from the public eye after leaving the entertainment industry. I hadn't heard much about him, so I was surprised to see the news. She said, 'Makoto passed away just yesterday.' I read the headline in shock. Makoto died at home yesterday due to family dispute. Apparently, he had argued with his wife, who, in a heated moment, had pushed him down the stairs, causing his accidental death. It was a bitter reminder that the past, particularly Willow's obsession with Makoto, had led to irreversible consequences. Had it not been for Willow's pursuit of Makoto, this tragedy might never have happened. As Anna and I prepared to leave, friends organized a farewell party for us. After a lively evening, as we were about to head home, a car behind us flashed its high beams. "George, I need to talk to you," came Willow's voice. She was driving, her eyes determined. She blocked the road with her car, causing a traffic jam. Fearing for Anna's safety, I reluctantly got into the car. Willow drove off, silent as we headed toward the Wang family estate. Finally, she spoke. "George, if it weren't for that contract, if there were no Makoto, would you have ever been with me?" I paused, nearly thinking I had misheard her. Willow's eyes were hopeful, as if waiting for me to say something comforting, but I laughed, my voice calm and resolute. "Whether there was a contract or not, no matter who you chased, we would never have been together." I looked at Willow's head, which hung low, and continued, "And you, how could you possibly love me? You've spent all your time chasing Makoto, almost losing your mind over him. You never paid attention to me. Do you even know what I like, what my hobbies are? Do you understand my true nature? You don't know anything about me. Don't talk about love. It's ridiculous. You only cared about my devotion, about how I gave everything for you for 5 years without complaint. You were used to that love being given, but when it was taken back, you couldn't stand it. You think you know love, but you don't. You don't understand loyalty, sacrifice, and responsibility. You don't deserve to love anyone. And you certainly don't deserve to love me." Chapter 20. With every word I spoke, Willow's face turned even paler. If only she had a little bit of heart, these 5 years wouldn't have been filled with so much disappointment, and I wouldn't have completely given up on her. She wouldn't have cheated during our marriage, repeatedly running to others, causing a family to fall apart because of her actions. I said, "I have my own life now, and someone I love. Please, don't bother me anymore." I said it all in one breath, leaving Willow standing there, stunned. It was as though all the energy had been drained from her. Tears streamed down her face, her heart breaking into pieces. Willow stared at me as I walked away, knowing she had lost all chances, with no reason to keep me. But at that moment, a blinding light suddenly flashed, and I instinctively covered my eyes. Then came Willow's scream and the screeching of car brakes. "George!" By the time I reacted, I saw Willow lying in a pool of blood, her face expressionless, and Maria, looking like she had lost all sense of herself. It turned out that Maria, in a state of complete despair after running away from the Liu family, had tried to seek revenge on me. That was the reason behind tonight's incident. She hated me for changing her fate and causing the Liu family to want her eliminated. Maria wanted me dead, wanted me to pay with my life. But just as things were about to take a tragic turn, Willow had shoved me aside. I fell to the ground, scraping only a little skin. But Willow was hit full force, falling hard to the ground and losing consciousness. I quickly called the police, but it was too late. Willow's injuries were severe, and she was rushed to the hospital, where she slipped into a coma. After a whole day of emergency treatment, the doctors managed to stabilize her condition, but they said she would be dependent on machines for the rest of her life, confined to a hospital bed forever. Maria was immediately arrested for intentional harm and thrown into prison. The Liu family had connections, so it was certain that she would face severe punishment. After the incident, Anna and I rushed to the hospital, looking at Willow, barely recognizable. My emotions were complex and conflicted. We had nothing to do with each other anymore, so why had she risked her life to save me? Had she completely given up on her own life? I sighed and didn't want to dwell on it. Perhaps it was because Willow had lived as a pampered lady for her entire life, thinking all she needed was to receive love without having to give anything in return. But in that moment, something I said in the car changed her. She reached out for me, and that act of redemption was far too late. What use was love that came too late? But still, she had been hurt for my sake, so I changed our flight tickets and waited patiently for Willow to wake up. A week later, Willow regained consciousness. Upon learning that she would never be able to walk again and that it was Maria who had hit her with the car, Willow didn't show much of a reaction. She simply looked at me with tears in her eyes but remained silent for a long time. She glanced at the bouquet of irises at the bedside and smiled peacefully. We had been together for 5 years. Whenever I was upset, Willow would casually give me a bouquet of lilies to comfort me, and I would immediately calm down. So, Willow always thought I liked lilies, but after our divorce, when she became obsessed with me, she visited every place I used to go. Only then did she learn that I was actually allergic to lilies. I didn't love lilies. Makoto did, but because they were from Willow, I smiled and accepted them. Later, Willow found out that I liked irises, but after 5 years together, she hadn't known. It was like the wrong flowers. Our entire 5-year marriage was a series of mistakes. She had never really cared about me, just like the flowers she gave at the wrong time. It was in the wrong place with the right person. No matter what others did, Willow had already lost me because she never took me seriously. Willow looked at the men before her and remembered that day on the yacht, when I had knelt on broken glass and proposed to her. Willow knew I wasn't good at lying, so that sincere, heart-wrenching gaze had been real. But once, I had loved her. When had she lost me? And when had she failed to find me again? Willow was overwhelmed by a deep, inexplicable sadness. She realized that our relationship was completely over. The regret that came too late made her cry uncontrollably. Only now did Willow understand what it truly meant to love someone. She had fallen in love with me when it was already impossible. She finally recognized the intense love she had for me. Willow cried so much she could hardly speak, but she still managed to force a smile. Choking, she said, "George, goodbye, never again." Anna and I successfully returned home, and on the plane, I received news that Liu's mother had passed away. After being sent abroad, she had heard about Willow's accident. The shock caused her to collapse from a heart attack. Without a nurse at home, by the time she was found and rushed to the hospital, it was too late. She had already passed away. As I listened to the news, I felt a deep sense of sorrow. Everyone paid the price for their actions, some painfully, others irreversibly. The Liu family, once thriving, fell apart, losing 2 crucial figures in an instant. Liu's father was drowning in debt and had to sell the company to settle it. On the day Liu family went bankrupt, I saw Willow on the television. She was sitting in a wheelchair, wearing mourning clothes, clutching a white flower wreath. Her eyes were hollow, void of any expression. People came up to her to offer their condolences, but Willow seemed deaf to it, sitting still, until the coffin was lifted away. Then, she screamed in agony, crying almost to the point of fainting. She wailed, "Mom, you're the only one who ever truly loved me. Now both you and George are gone. What will I do?" Willow's sobs were so heartbreaking that she eventually fainted. I turned off the television. The once cherished daughter of the Liu family had become disabled, and her mother had tragically passed away. The once prosperous Liu family had collapsed so suddenly. Everyone felt sorry for it, and I was no exception. But karma had come for them, and I had no words to offer. As planned, Anna and I held our wedding, surrounded by the love and blessings of our family and friends. We kissed each other happily. After the wedding, Anna continued her research, and I kept working hard for my career. Our values aligned, and every day we spent together was full of sweetness and happiness. In the early winter, as the first snow fell, Anna excitedly told me, "I'm going to be a dad." We embraced, watching the snow fall outside, entering a new stage of our lives. The warmth of that moment brought peace to my heart. Just then, I received a call from a friend in China. He said, "Willow is dead. She took her own life in the hospital. She left a letter for you. Do you want to see it?" I looked at Anna, who was cooking, and shook my head. "No, burn it. There's no such thing as a pill for regret, and no second chances. Willow's life was hers to choose, and I had no right to interfere. One thing I knew, life moves forward. After our divorce, we were strangers. Why would I read the letter of a stranger? I had no desire to look back, and I certainly didn't want to accept her late affection." The snow stopped. I hung up the phone and walked back home. I hugged Anna from behind, resting my hand on her stomach, feeling the growth of life. "We will be happier every day," I said, my voice firm. I kissed Anna, and with that, I believed that after the storm, a clear sky was waiting for me.